This is iRacing.
Time has a way of vindicating, and for the Hungaroring, it has aged well. Once often maligned, it's become a favorite for fans. So, let's see if it gives us a good show today as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. We'll see it all live here on iRacing and the Global SimRacing Channel. I am Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is former driver Joey Atterbury. And behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Joey, I've heard some describe this place as being like a scaled-up go-kart track.
It's definitely a lot of track packed into a very small area. So yeah, it kind of can be reminiscent of a go-kart facility just with extra large cars with a whole lot more horsepower. It's going to be exciting to watch these Lotus 79s around this place.
Well, in case our viewers aren't as familiar with the Hungaroring, let's head to our track guide to find out more. Welcome to the Hungaroring. Situated just northeast of Budapest, this Grand Prix circuit has racked up a stunning history in just a little more than 30 years of existence. Its biggest claim to fame was holding the first Formula One race inside the Iron Curtain at a time when the Cold War was at its peak. But most fans don't associate this 2.7-mile or 4.38-kilometer track with politics. No, its 14 turns make it tight and twisty with a reputation for few places to overtake. For a long time, it was renowned for processional races in which qualifying is of the utmost importance. But the past couple decades have seen a litany of utterly wild and unpredictable races that greatly overshadow the single-file events of before. The majority of passing takes place into Turn 1, while some battles do carry on into Turn 2. But be careful about how greedy you get, because the steep drop in elevation makes it easy to go wide. Other than that, Turn 12 is often the only other realistic place to sneak by your opponent. Perhaps the scariest and trickiest of the corners is 4, which presents a blind and crooked entry into a high-speed flick. Though modern times have seen a paved runoff added to it to make it safer, that's considered out of bounds, and drivers will find themselves being told to give back time if they abuse the exit. Built with fans in mind, the track sits in a natural bowl, allowing great views from most sides of the venue. It's easy to see why it's become a fan favorite on the F1 calendar, and there's little doubt it'll continue to see lots of racing for years to come. This place notorious, Joey, for track position being a huge factor.
Qualifying will definitely be important on this one. Let's take a look at this track map of the Hungaroring. 14 turns, 2.72 miles in total length, and like you said earlier, it's pretty much like a scaled up go-kart track. You see kind of the plot of land is just this square, this rectangle if you will, and lots of twist backs. The track definitely folds back in on itself quite a few times. There's also a lot of elevation. Turn number 1 is probably your best passing opportunity because you do have this long front straightaway, but then the track starts to feed downwards in elevation down through 2 and 3 complex. You accelerate up to the incredibly fast turn number 4. You got to be careful about the exit there. You can definitely high center the car on those tall curbs. And then through, call it sector 2, the backside of the racetrack, much more technical from that first chicane, turn 6 and 7, all the way through that turn 10 and 11, even include turn number 12 in there. And then sector number 3 is all uphill from the exit of turn number 12. Don't forget about that long right-hander turn number 14 to end out this lap. It can make or break a lap time over there.
Well, we are well into the championship now, so why don't we take a moment to look at the point standings? Togo Hisada still leads, but look, it is not a lot. James Berry, his win last week has put him very close because he's been pretty consistent this season. However, he has missed a couple rounds, so the drop weeks will probably come in handy. Now, Gernot Frische as well is in a similar situation. Has had at least one win so far this season, but he's also only finished off the podium once, but he's missed races, so that's why he sits in third. Good season so far for Karthik Pai before we get a pretty big drop-off down to fifth, sixth, and seventh, and so on, who are still kind of squabbling for the scraps of the F1 drivers' standings. But let's take a look at the F2 standings as well.
Yeah, just a different I rating, but same car. And you see Connor Levy has a nice 30-point lead over Jeanette here in second place. Only 9 points separating himself and Keith Herner there in third place. And then it's pretty equal distant gaps. Steinbild here in fourth. Alex Klessig inside the top five. Only a handful of points back from Alec is actually Andrew Dixon back here in sixth place. Samari 7 in 2 points back from Dixon, so definitely tightens up back there. Then a little bit of a gap for our final three inside the top 10. Summers, Grinnan, and the Big Cat, Barry West.
They also have a teams championship for this series, and right now it is Lotus up at the top, ahead of Tyrrell by a decent amount of points, but there's still plenty of racing left in this season that they could overturn that. McLaren, though, have got a lot of work to do. Keith Herner and Todd Herner are going to have to do their best to try and make some inroads soon, or else they're going to be out of the picture before they know it. They might have to look behind to Renault Elf, of course, sitting only about 9 points behind them. Very good battle between those two for that third position, with Williams then trailing in behind before we start to see a big separation down to the remaining of our top 10. Real quick, in case we have viewers who haven't tuned in to the Sunday Grand Prix Series, Joey, let's go over the race details.
Yeah, we're just past halfway through this, call it 12-round season. Should be round number 7 here today. And we're going to be doing 29 laps around this Hungaroring racetrack. These cars have a pretty rapid pace around here. An open setup, that means you get to pop open that garage tab, tweak and tune on that car. Make sure it's handling exactly how you need. Also, if you've seen the social media posts, go join the Discord. They love handing out the fast stuff. So if you're scared about the open setup, don't be. They share the fast setups if you're in the community here. In terms of the penalties, a drive-through penalty at 17 incident points, disqualification at 25 incident points. And Hungaroring is a little bit interesting. There is a ton of runoff out here. I do think you can kind of avoid others if they get in too deep into some of these break zones. So gotta have to watch out for those incident points today.
Certainly a lot of paved runoff here in modern Formula One tracks, so that makes it difficult without a doubt. We're in qualifying. James Berry returns with some very good laps. He is on provisional pole, but we have yet to see Togo Hisada take his second lap, and he is off by about 3.5 tenths of a second. So he could jump across here and get up to that pole, but it's going to take a good second lap from this number 2 car. He's about halfway through it now.
Watching this number 2 car, like you said, about halfway through the lap. This is through, I believe, turn 8 and 9, feed it through 10, and now the right-hander of turn number 11. You come up to sector number 3 here. I'm not sure if this is actually the lowest part of the racetrack. I think it's over by turn number 3, but ever since the exit of turn number 12 here, it is an uphill climb. The long, tedious left-hander of turn number 13 and an almost identical right-hander of turn number 14. Joe, I always find these final 2 corners, they just seem to last forever, and you have to be so patient on the throttle in order to get the drive out. Let's see what Togo Hisada's second lap will put down.
He improves, but not his position. Mueller has jumped him. He is only going to be starting third at best. I am with you, though, that those last 2 corners require so much patience. Maybe that's why I don't like them, because I just don't have the patience in the race cars. Gernot Frische has been, like I said, on a good series of finishes for most of his races. Currently sitting 5th, though, but qualifying hasn't been his strength as much since many years ago. Let's see if he can jump up on the first 2 rows as he actually gets pushed down to 6th. JDS, Jack David Spickett, is now in 4th.
If I'm going to kind of guesstimate on where Frisia's second lap time is, I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to what JDS just put down. So Frisia's first lap of 34.5, and we always know that these second laps, once the tires are really truly up to pressure and temperature, they do produce a little bit more speed. So I expect him to cut it down by maybe half second, 3/4 of a second. It actually shows about 0.8 faster on my screen. Let's see what he's actually able to put down, a 33.5. So it's going to slot him directly in front of JDS onto the second row.
Nice, 4th place. Dylan Freckleton does have 1 lap in, but this is way farther down than usual for him. Trying to see if he had some sort of hiccup, and if he did, it would have at least put him close to the rest of the car. So I'm a bit confused by this. There must have been something that has gone wrong for this number 5 car. He is way out of position right now, but this could be a determining factor in his race. If he doesn't get a good second lap, he's going to have a heck of a time. This will be decisive. He'll cross the line. It's a 33.8. That is much, much better. That'll put him in 6th.
On the 3rd row for Dylan Freckleton, and I think that's pretty much going to wrap up qualifying. I think there's about 10 or 15 seconds left, but no cars physically out there on the racetrack. So it looks like James Berry is going to be your pole sitter. That lap time, a 1:33.262. And Joe, I'm just noticing, do you see how close Togo is to Mueller? Only by a 1/100th of a second separating second and third.
Could have been a big difference there, but we've got our grid ready, so let's go through that order now as James Berry does take the pole with the 2 bonus points. Mueller in second. As you said, Hisada so close to being in that spot, will be P3. Gernot Frisia in 4th, and then Jack David Spickett with a lap that almost confused him, it sounds like, from the chat, be in 5th. And Dylan Freckleton 6th. Then it's Karthik Pai starting P7 today. Han Sommer in 8th. Jack Wells 9th. And Mickey Friesen rounds out your top 10.
Then we have Andrea Zanin back here in 11th. Aaron Blair in 12th place with Taylor Lane starting in 13th. Jean-Francois Boscus in 14th with Daniel Gallus starting 15th. Matt White in 16th next to him. Kirk Clapper going to start in 17th with Jamie Wilson next to him in 18th. And Ricardo Ruiz is going to share row number 10 with Alex Matei.
21st will go to Matt Cockrum with Bjorn Ackerman starting 22nd today. Then it's Daniel Banker 23rd. Barry West down in P24 today with Antonio Alvarez on the inside of the next row in 25th. Then it's Kevin Parrish, Keith Herner, and Jason Clapper. So Keith going to need a bit of pace out there, it looks like, so with him unfortunately not being able to help on the team's championship if he's going to finish where he started today. Meanwhile, we wait for the last of the cars to line up. It looks like Frisia, Sandin, and Alvarez going to be our last ones to get onto the grid, which could be a bit nervy, as often you'll see some incidents down into turn 1 at this track with that sharp first corner. Everybody's ready and gridded up. The lights now come up here for round 7 of the Sunday Grand Prix series as the engines rev here in Hungary and the green flag is out. It's a poor start for second place. Julius Mueller might lose out to Hisada. He may have missed on qualifying, but he's looking good here at the race start. He's looking for the lead as he comes around the outside with his nose slightly ahead. Question is, can he finish the job? Not quite. James Berry will hold out in front of him.
And Togo Hisada slots into that second place. He's going to take a look down the inside, but not quite close enough. You see it side by side for what is 4th. Almost a little bit of contact between JDS back here and Dylan Freckleton. I think I saw that Hans Sommer also had a good start, but Togo Hisada is trying to find a way around James Berry to the outside around the fast turn number 4. That could have been dangerous. Loses about a car length.
And Julius Mueller is going to sneak up on them because of that, so definitely slow them down. Oh, and something's happened to Frisia and Ackerman as they are at the back of the field. That's in turn 4. We'll have to check in on that in a little bit, but what a pity there for Frisia, who started well up the order. In the meantime, top 3 trying to put some distance on, but all 3 of them know, Joey, this is a critical part of the race, getting that track position.
You had mentioned qualifying track position. It is so important here at the Hungaroring, and I think that Togo Hisada is in full urgency mode He wants to have that clean air, not only because there's nobody in front of you at that point, but it's better for the car. It's more air on the front wing. It's more grip to those front tires. You're going to be burning them off less as we come around the final turn number 14 for the first time here today.
I did manage to get a chance to go back myself and look, and it looks like Karthik Pai may have made a bit of contact with Gernot Friesche, though I think it was ghost contact. And look at how on the attack Hisada is, tries to get to the inside coming down into turn 1. This time on the opposite side, doesn't give him the position either, although he's staying alongside. I think we'll have to drop back maybe. No, he breaks deep into turn 2, tries to go around the outside. That gives him the inside for turn 3. He knows this could be it, and it is. He takes the lead away from Barry.
That was a great move from Togo Hisada just to kind of force the issue into turn number 1 and then really drive it deep in the downhill turn number 2 to secure the lead. You can go too wide through that corner. Togo Hisada has proven it, but now James Barry is looking for a way back around. You see him pretty much tucked up underneath the wing of this black number 2 car. The only problem, it's got a bright yellow and white number 11 directly on his gearbox as well. Now Barry's actually a little bit wide, so this is an interesting situation. If you attack, you also have to play defense.
Hisada saw he needed to attack because Barry had the momentum from the win last race. He is not wasting time to show dominance out here. Mueller still stalking, as you mentioned, sitting in that third, but look at JDS. He's starting to catch up to them. It looks like he's finding pace in these early laps and bringing along Dylan Freckleton as well.
This track is not necessarily a draft track, but you had mentioned how important track positioning is. You can kind of have these faux DRS trains, and especially if you've got a car with a little bit more top speed that's running at the front of the train, it can just kind of pull along everybody else. And you're right, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, all in the same shot.
Freckleton just trying to catch up just a little bit. While they are stuck like this, we have a chance to see a replay. And yeah, this confirms it. 3 wide, and that is Friesche, who decides to back out of it, which normally is the wise move, but I don't think Karthik Pai expected him to break that early.
So unfortunate for the number 1 car, and then you see an additional car down there, and it's just so fast going down into turn 4 here, and that was Bjorn Ackerman from our producer down there. So unfortunate for the unicorn machine on that opening lap as well.
Yeah, it must have been his own independent incident that sent him out there. But, oh, we're hearing it wasn't, so maybe got collected somehow in that. We've got another replay. So did he just get... Oh, yeah, well, it started as a separate incident.
You're right. It started as its own completely separate incident of the same type of thing.
All right. So my original point stands. It was all something separate from what we saw before. Meanwhile, let's go back to what we've got here. Battle for third because Mueller, who was on the attack, starting to drop off of James Barry, and that's allowed Jack David Spickett to really focus forward. This is one of the few good chances you've got coming down the main straight. No DRS on these cars, so it's all going to have to be about that good exit out of the final turn.
You saw Togo Hisada doing the snake, the serpentine, whatever you want to call it, down that straightaway to try to break any of that drafting effect. And a little bit further back in the pack, you see it's definitely very, very busy. I think that's Zanin trying to get by Mickey Friesen back here. So they're going to go side by side. Mickey is in the blue, white, and red car, almost a Nissan-themed car like those GTP cars, while Zanin's going to try to force the issue on the outside. We saw Togo Hisada pull this move off. They're still side by side. Talk about a huge moment there for Andrea, was able to collect the car.
And is going to lose another spot down through 4 to Taylor Lane, but a great catch from Zanin to prevent that from becoming a bigger wreck. And we've seen a lot of cars spin in turn 3. Jason Clapper getting brave in his traditional charge through the field, going side by side through turn 4, and that is going to compromise the 12. Switching back now, he's going to get by around the outside instead of Keith Herner. Takes it into the chicane. Herner's slow now. He sees Alvarez trying to sneak up the inside. He'll get through. It is all kicking off here.
And that third car in line is Bjorn Ackerman. Remember, we had just documented his troubles on lap number 1, so this driver is anxious to get back into the fight here. He's already caught back up to what is 24th place, so I have a feeling that Bjorn is going to be on the charge. Little bit of a slide there going into what is turn number 12. Kind of slid outward on the racetrack on the exit, but it's more important, this next right-hander, as long as you can stay patient, you see everybody trying to get a little bit antsy in their pantsy on that throttle pedal, squeezing it as soon as they can.
They're going to separate down that main straight, so that puts aside the battle at least for a brief moment. But look at this, my goodness, 5 cars all taking different lines out of turn 1, being led by Jamie Wilson. Oh, contact between Zanon and White. White has to go wide to collect the car. Will he lose all the spots? No, he'll hold back Taylor Lane, who does not capitalize on that one. It is frantic in the mid-pack.
I saw that replay of kind of that schmozzle down there in the turn 6, 7. Oh no, and now Matt White gets punted off by Taylor Lane. That was very similar to that difference in speed we saw with Freesia and Karthik Pai on the opening lap. This one was just one more corner down. Unfortunately for Matt White, though, he's got heavy damage.
Yeah, he did exactly what you said earlier and bottomed out on the curb, exit of 4, and that's what cost him that time to slow up. So real unfortunate. And in fact, he did carry on, but he's missing some significant body work, so I suspect he may have to make a visit to pit lane. Zanon has been in the action, that is for sure, but we're going to check out the action in front, because look at James Berry. He's still holding on to Hisada, and Bueller's recovered. He's now got back up to the gearbox of the 4.
I'm going to give credit really to the entire top 5, because that purple car of Dylan Freckleton is still within slipstream range of the Pepsi machine of Jack David Spickett, who's sitting in 4th, who's in slipstream range of Mueller, who's in 3rd. And then you see how tight these top 2 are between Berry and Hisada. So I really think that the top 5 right now are doing a terrific job. However, I do think that this is the part of the race where Togo Hisada all of a sudden kind of puts those blinders on, blocks off the rearview mirror, and just sets sail. He gets better and better and better every single lap. Does this red number 4 car have the pace to keep up with Togo Hisada and maybe force him into a mistake over the next 23 laps?
So far for the early laps, I mean, he has done a great job of holding him honest. As we check back in with Matt Cockrum, I think this is Taylor Lane once again. Oh, was there contact between them? They'll get away with it. Wheel to wheel coming up to the chicane with Cockrum to the inside. He'll finish the job. Taylor Lane, another car that's certainly seen a lot in a very little time. Speaking of Zanon earlier, he's had to visit pit lane. He must have got some damage from that contact.
And do you see the livery here on the number 27 of Matt Cockrum, who just made that pass? I mean, talk about one of the best bands of all time. He has got a full KISS livery in this thing. The only thing that's missing is the helmet paint. He needs the face paint on the helmet.
Oh, that would be great. We'll see if he follows up with that. But the battle behind them, Taylor Lane goes a bit wide. Is this going to open it up for the 10? He can't pick it up, as Daniel Gallus has to try again a bit later. Could he cut back underneath him? He leaves the door open himself with a wide entry for Barry West to try and cut under him. But no, that's not going to work for Barry either. Now Barry West, as it trickles backwards, is vulnerable to Jason Clapper. Clapper looking at potentially 3 wide as we check in on Barry's camera. On the outside, that is going to be a mistake from Gallus. That'll give up the spot to Clapper. He gets 2 and 1.
A little nervous moment for Taylor Lane as Gallus went very deep on the brakes. Another really deep moment there in turn number 2, but Jason Clapper is able to get both of those positions, so he's able to pass Barry West and Daniel Gallus there in that turn 1 and 2 complex. He sets his sight for now Taylor Lane, the front of this pack. We typically see Jason Clapper definitely be one of the biggest movers, and he's definitely on that trend once again here today.
Black flag for Jean-Francois Boscus. Not sure what that's about, but he's in pit lane serving it already, it appears. Meanwhile, back with Clapper, still stuck behind Taylor Lane while they try to dispatch with Gallus and West behind them. And then battling could open up the door for them to regain ground. We're checking in with Alvarez now. Oh, we've gone back to the battle here with Clapper, who cuts underneath. This is an excellent job, sets himself up for the atypical spot of passing into turn 11. It does offer opportunities, and Jason doesn't need invited twice.
Oh, and actually side by side, Big Cat's going to try to go around the outside of what is turn number 13, but that's always a very difficult thing to do. Just kind of think of it like a parking lot, like an autocross, and all of a sudden, I think that's Taylor Lane coming into pit lane right now. So these drivers are all going to go up +1 position, but Barry West firmly in the slipstream of Daniel Gallus, and Gallus doesn't have anybody to tow him along. Can he get the move done into turn number 1? Both equal on the brakes. It's going to come down to putting the power down. Barry West accelerates through the apex and up into 16th.
You can see him glance off to the left-hand side to see where the other car was coming off the corner. Had to leave him some space and still does here. Through turn 2, goes wide, and the car slips a little bit, but he's going to hold the position. Strange moments for Taylor Lane. That was not a penalty, and I didn't see any obvious damage on the car, but he felt the need to come in, and he's still sitting in pits now.
Yeah, and let's see if there's a replay here of one of the incidents that Taylor had maybe a little bit earlier. This is with Matt White. You had called it perfectly. He just got way out of shape on the outside there of what is turn number 4, and Taylor Lane got into the back of him. I wonder if there was residual damage, and he just decided that he needed to come and get it fixed.
Yeah, handling could have been off, something that we couldn't see, or he felt he was lacking straight line speed.
And Joe, I'm looking at his car. He does have a damaged front wing while he sits in the pits.
And unfortunately, back in this era, it wasn't as simple as just unclipping that wing and putting a new one on. So he's been sitting for some time, which also indicates maybe it is a bit of suspension damage. Meanwhile, Alvarez is now caught up to that same group that we were watching with West and Gallus. Parrish also in this bunch, and it all erupts once again coming down the front stretch. Everybody trying to position themselves on this downhill plunge into the first corner. Gallus does not defend. Parrish is going to go for it. Says strap in and shut up and give me the position as he goes by the inside of Daniel Gallus. Job not completely done, though. Gallus could try and send one up the inside of turn 2, but he's not as aggressive.
This is definitely a frustrating moment of the race for Daniel Gallus as we jump back up to our lead. Jack David Spickett has officially taken away third place from Mueller here, so the Pepsi machine, the number 6, now sits on the podium here. I noticed, I think it was maybe 1 lap ago, maybe 2 laps ago, that gap between second and third had all of a sudden grown. That tells me that there might have been a mistake out of this number 11 car, especially now that JDS has gotten by. In fact, here is that replay on the top of your screen. That was into the turn 6-7 chicane, just a little bit too deep on the brakes. The car washed out, and JDS was there to take advantage.
Yeah, I got to tip my hat to Jack because, I mean, you had to be right on top of things to pick that one up. And he did just that, sneaking through with enough time before the next corner. Meanwhile, top 2 have definitely distanced themselves from that group because that little error, it is still about 0.3 of a second between Hisada and Barry, with Barry just hanging out in that mirror, in that rear wing, making sure that he can't make any sort of mistakes in this race. And we have seen Hisada do that before. He's not completely immune to having hiccups out on track, but he's having to work for this one. Ooh, and it's a big slide there through 4.
Get the replay here of exactly what happened to Mickey Friesen. Oh, I'm sorry, that is live. That's side by side with Mickey Friesen a little bit back here, and I believe that's Aaron Blair for what is 9th and 10th, as you see that pressure still mounting on Togo Hisada. Typically, we see it as Pauli Partonen in seasons past, but James Barry has been up to the challenge here today. We're approaching that halfway mark, and I really thought that Togo Hisada was going to start to kind of pull this one away like we typically see, but James is doing a terrific job, and if anything, Joe, I think that he's actually starting to apply more pressure at this stage.
Yeah, James Barry, relative newcomer to this series, not just a handful of starts so far, but has made a splash on his arrival, and the driver from the UK is making sure the Japanese driver cannot rest for a single incident. Does seem like maybe Togo a little bit better straight line speed, which you wouldn't think you'd need at this track, but it's serving him well, keeping James Barry at bay.
He's learned from some of the best, from Pauli and Yuka and series past champions Gernot. I think that there's the fast baseline, right? There's the fast setup that everybody is on. However, if you can take that awesome fast setup and go maybe -1 on the wing, and then maybe make a few adjustments so it's not crazy loose and you can still actually drive it aggressively, you're going to have that, call it 2-mile-an-hour advantage down the straightaway while being pretty equal with everybody everywhere else. So I think that's the trick, Joe, is that you find the fastest setup, and then you just barely click it down one more on the rear wing just to have that little bit of top speed, but you need to be good enough in order to handle it everywhere else.
As we take a look at Julius Mueller almost managing to make a move, and actually a little bit of contact it looked like between them, which again they get away with, but he's still stuck behind, unable to pass Spigot. And I agree that it seems that this is partly why those drivers are not afraid to share those fast setups. It's can you drive it? Whoa, look at that sideways into the penultimate corner from Mueller, touching the grass on his way in.
That was pretty fun to watch there. However, I'm sure the rear tires are not too appreciative of it, and kind of the same type of deal through that final turn. He had the nice inside line, but because that corner is so long, pretty much lost the rear end by the time he actually got to exit, and once again just too far back to make an overly aggressive move going down into turn number 1. So JDS, the only problem that he's got right now is that it's actually grown to 2.5 seconds between himself and James Berry in second place. So I don't see him getting the benefit of the slipstream back on the front straightaway. It is going to be all eyes in the mirror and defensive moves for the rest of the race, as long as he's got Mueller back there.
Yeah, unless he's got some more pace. It's not seeming as likely that he'll run them down, but still possible. Meanwhile, Kurt Clapper also having some fun. This is Daniel Gallus on the inside. Accelerates off better, does Kurt. He'll take that 18th place. Alvarez also watching. Is he going to get sneaky? Yes, he is. Way deep down into turn 2, and actually maybe even fully through. Nice pass by the 20.
Yeah, the Miller Lite machine opened up the door in turn number 1, and all of a sudden, Antonio Alvarez took advantage in turn number 2. I was going to mention a little bit earlier that Daniel Gallus, it's got to be a frustrating moment for him because he's doing everything right. He's not necessarily making mistakes, but it just seems like other cars have a little bit more race pace underneath them, and it causes him to kind of overcharge these corners, which unfortunately isn't the thing he needs to do, as Mueller once again is really aggressive. He actually might have the pass done in turn number 14.
He was close to it, but he couldn't get the throttle down as quickly as Jack David Spigot from the outside. He's still got a wheel alongside him, and that's going to send him deep down into turn 1. Cut back maybe from JDS. No, can't manage to do it. But look at Dylan Freckleton and the purple machine just behind them. He is caught up a bunch because of this fighting. Yeah, I don't think this is about trying to catch the lead. This is trying to decide third from here.
And we've seen Mueller kind of get loose on corner entry at a few moments in this race. Has kind of got this cool split screen side-by-side riding on board with Dylan Freckleton. That's the caboose on the train, so you really get to see the attack of Jack David Spigot on the back of Mueller. Mueller's got one focus right now, and that is to try to close this gap that is now opened up to 3.6 seconds. So he's going to try to run up the road and bring this trio here with him.
Train is appropriate. I love the nod on Dylan's little scoop there on the front with the Crazy Train reference. So we'll see if it can take him to the engine of this train. But for now, he's still stuck behind. But at least he's caught up to them to try and see if he can get himself onto the podium. This has been a fun little fight, but we're just about at the halfway point, so there is plenty to come. This could easily develop into something wild here, especially considering we haven't even mentioned whether or not they could hit traffic this race.
Oh, that's another great point that you bring up, and given that this place is only doing about minute 30 lap times, it's certainly possible that we could run into the back of the pack, and it looks like Barry West, unfortunately, has had a problem. He was parked on the exit of what was turn number 3 out there, so one of our favorite characters in this race, unfortunately, out of it.
And I'm trying to see if it was related to Gernot Friesche in some fashion, because he's missing his rear wing. but it must have happened a long time ago because I've rewound a long ways and I'm not finding any spot where that incident is. In the meantime, continuing to watch this battle for P3, we're hearing that Barry West may have had some issues outside of the sim.
So, purely guesstimating here, it could have to do with the equipment itself. I remember I was on virtual reality for the longest time, but the reason why I actually moved to triple monitors is that if there is anything to do with hardware issues, you simply cannot deal with it while sitting inside that virtual reality headset. Very unfortunate for Barry West. Once again, I'm kind of guessing what happened over here, but it's still 25th and out.
Yeah, definitely a shame. He was having some fun. Still, Dylan Freckleton hailing from the Isle of Man and working on Jack David Spickett, who seems to be losing a bit on Julius Mueller now. So was Jack a bit of a plug in the Spickett, if you will, of this group, and just holding up that yellow and white machine. He'll try and reel him back in down the main straight, but doesn't seem to be able to do so. He'll stay stationary behind by about 0.4 of a second.
Well, he evidently bought the ticket on the crazy train, so Indiana Jones is not going to toss him out of this 3-car blimp right now, at least not quite yet, as Mueller continues to lead this trio here. The problem, so once he got back out front, he's actually not any faster than Jack David Spickett. In fact, it was 3.6 seconds up to second place when he had actually made that pass for third. And now it's actually grown up to 4.2 seconds between himself and James Barry. This could be one of those situations where nobody actually wants to lead this group. When you get the lead car out in front, oh, maybe it's a little bit too deep into this brake zone. Maybe I hop the apex curb a little bit, and it costs you a 10th here, it costs you a 10th there, and all of a sudden that car is right back on the rearview mirror. It actually happens quite a bit.
It's hard to find time here. This track is just a constant onslaught of corners to try and tackle. Hisada versus Barry, that also hasn't gone away. Now up to lap 15, about to be lap 16 of this race, with that bright red car just continuing to fill those mirrors, like you said, about 4 seconds ahead and just inching away from them. That looked like a slight mistake, though, from James as he loses ground, sliding his way through the final turn.
With how long the final corner is here, you got to be patient, right? If you try to squeeze onto it just that little bit early, instead of the car driving forward, you actually get that rear slip, and it caused that loose moment, that drifting moment coming out of the corner. And when you have that loss of traction, guess what? You're not powering forward down the racetrack. That is what makes turn 13 and turn 14 so technical, so difficult as a driver. You have to be patient when you want to go fast.
By the way, Barry West did get back out on track, so if he was having a hardware problem, he seems to have got it solved. Oh, that was a bit wide from Toga Hisada, but again, that shows just how hard it is to try and overtake. He was a good cars width off the apex and still didn't give up the lead. Now, you've really got no place to get by through this portion. This is what I was talking about, where it's constant corners, back and forth, all along the farther part of the track before you finally get a bit of a break coming down to the braking of turn 11. But he's not close enough to do anything here.
Togo Asada has just been so good with car placement. And I mean, it's every single corner, every single moment of this racetrack, he's got the car placed where it needs to be. And of course, you think, all right, you want to be on the racing line if you want to go as fast as possible. So, okay, mission accomplished. But the second part of it is that it doesn't really allow anywhere for this second place car to make a move if you're already on the racing line at maximum performance. How do you go even faster than what that car is? So, James Barry definitely in a difficult situation here. And Joe, I'm going to bring up a point that you made probably 10 laps ago or so. I agree with you. I think that Togo Asada maybe has a little bit more straight line speed. You see how good James Barry is through the rest of the racetrack, but he just can't quite make the ground on the straightaway.
Togo on 3 wins so far this season, trying to collect number 4 today. But it seems like anytime we see Togo racing here in the Lotus 79s, he's always up against somebody. I'm trying to think of any time that we've ever seen Togo just absolutely run away with a race. It feels like there is always someone that is close and challenging him for these.
Well, I don't know. He kind of runs away from Pauli Partonen quite a bit, but, Pauli's not out here to defend himself right now, so I figure I might as well throw a shot.
We'll see if he gets angry at you about that one. But James Barry is definitely giving him something to think about, and it has been just these two all by their lonesome. I think they're coming up to Barry West here shortly. But that's a lone car. There's a long ways up to Gernot Friesche, the next one up the road. So it doesn't look like traffic should be a big issue. Those are two veterans that they're approaching, so they'll know how to get out of the way.
100%. And as with all of the vintage communities, they are trying to be as respectful as possible out here. They don't want to involve themselves in somebody else's race. And I'm actually got my eye on some chat over here. Pauli Partonen is actually in the YouTube chat. He says that Togo has way more top speed than what James Barry has. So he's sitting here watching this broadcast, and he noticed the same thing you did, Joe Peak.
I love when the drivers kind of get in when they're not in the car and give their input. Definitely helps us a lot, seeing some things sometimes that we don't even catch. But Jason Clapper on Alex Matei finds an opening down in turn one, and he's going to be able to take that one easily. Matei does not fight it.
So that slips Alex back to what is 14th place, but he's still having a terrific day, up 6 positions. It's just that Jason never qualifies this car. I wonder, he's got 12 laps left. He's about a second and a half behind Wilson there for 12th place, but then after that, the gaps actually start to get pretty big. I see about 3.5 seconds, another 2.5 seconds. So I think the bar is set for a top 10 for Jason Clapper. We'll see if he can actually get there.
15 spots gained so far, so not a bad day for him, but we've seen him do more impressive things than that. Meanwhile, back up to the top, can't seem to look away for very long just because the ever-present threat is there. But big credit to Togo Hisada, really soaking this pressure up as well, because that's the other half of the equation, Joey. You can get that track position, but if someone is breathing down your neck, you really have to be able to focus.
100%. I try to draw these parallels, and this one's always difficult. I always try to compare it to if you're sitting at a classroom and you're taking a test, but the teacher is sitting over your shoulder and say, oh, are you sure you want to do that on that answer? Oh, what about this question? You sure about that one? So it's just kind of that somebody looking over your shoulder, evaluating every single thing that you're doing. And if you do something wrong, they're already tapping you on the shoulder, say, hey, I'm here. I'm going to take advantage.
Still got 26 cars out. Only Zanon and Lane have retired from this race so far. That's plenty to cause some congestion later on, but we're still waiting for them to catch most of those drivers. In fact, I don't even think they'll get the rest of them after Friesche and West, because Ackerman is almost half a lap away, it appears. So, everybody has been running impressive pace out here, with this being top split of 2 in the Lotus 79s, and you get some extremely talented drivers in this series, often into the 8,000 or 9,000 iRating range.
I'm going to get a little bit nerdy here because I noticed that Craig King over there in chat, also part of our broadcast team over here, had mentioned that we know how much Togo and Pauli love to drive a loose race car, and that's pretty typical of not having any sort of downforce, any sort of wing level on the back, and that's exactly how they make the speed. I'm going to make a counterpoint, though. I actually think that James Barry's car is very, very loose as well. We saw it out of Mueller as well in that number 11 car earlier. I think it's actually on entry. These cars are loose as well, so it's not making that same turn in that same sort of condition. He has loosened up the car simply because he wants it to turn more. Togo has loosened up the car because he wants more top speed. So 2 different adjustments to get the same characteristic. However, when we look at the race pace, you want one in terms of a race car, and that's the speed down the straightaway.
It's so much easier to pass on a straight than it is in a corner. So, and Barry is learning that lesson the hard way. I also wonder how much of it is set up for Barry and how much is he's having to deal with dirty air this entire race. He's not getting the same performance as Togo is.
Yes, there is that factor, 100%. But I think it even more proves my point that he's got a loose car in order for it to turn. In fact, here he is on the attack. He's going to show the nose. Togo actually slips up about half a car width at apex, but he knows this is no place to really force an issue as James Berry's going to try it. He got the wing to the rear wheel axle almost for Togo Asada. So as the laps are clicking down, maybe that low downforce setup out front starting to struggle a little bit with tire wear, but let's check out the slipstream on the front straightaway. Can James actually do anything? No.
Yeah, he was much, much closer, though, and you could tell that Togo knew it. Oh, as he went defensive, but he left the door open, and that time Berry knew he had to do something, couldn't quite get the nose in there, and backs out. I get the feeling also Togo was in a bit of self-preservation mode. He saw him try to dive into 3 different corners and just left him a little bit of room just in case there was suddenly a red Lotus 79 just sticking itself at the apex where he wanted to be. Now he can return to that racing line and try to focus forward once more. We saw a little flash, I think, of Barry West. They're getting ever closer to the car currently running in 25th. And we got maybe a bit of an issue with Clapper back here. Was he in a fight coming down?
I think he's making a pass on Jamie Wilson right now live. So move Jason Clapper up into the 12th place position as Wilson's going to try to fight back, but ultimately relinquish that spot as Jason continues his charge up through the field here. I was just going to mention one more thing about this battle between James Berry and Togo Hisada as this trio continues to kind of lose pace and lose ground in touch of those top two. James, typically a higher downforce setup will prevail in the longer run, so the tire should last a little bit more. The lower downforce, you're sliding the tire around, having to manage it more. So Togo Asada, obviously an expert at being able to do that. And then the final thing is he has so much more time in these cars. He knows how deep they can go on the brake zone. I wonder if James Berry will overstep that limit and Togo Asada maybe not expecting it.
Still watching Mueller, Spickett, Freckleton. This is for the last step on the podium. 8 laps to go. Time is running out. Oh, I thought that was a bobble there from Jack. And he's able to get down to the apex at the right time, but he's starting to feel it as well. Dylan knows he's going to have to jump on even the slightest error because there is no room around this track to try and make moves unless your rival gives you space, as we saw a little bit earlier with Hisada.
I do feel like I'm being a little bit hard on this trio. Ever since they lost that draft, that slipstream touch, it seems like they've just continued to lose ground, now up to 4.7 seconds. But their last lap times were just as fast as our leaders. So I actually have a feeling it's probably these 3 kind of battling it out. That's actually what lost the ground to our top 2 leaders.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. It does seem to be the only time we've seen them drop significantly. Look at how close Dylan keeps getting to the back of Jack, but just has no place to take the car. Has to roll up so that he doesn't jam into that rear wing and ruin that nice Pepsi livery. Meanwhile, coming down the main straights, no, that was a little bit wide out of Dylan, and that will definitely cost him an opportunity.
Our leaders are going through turn 1 apex. You could just barely see them from that view of Dylan Freckleton as our 3rd, 4th, and 5th stay pretty even. Nose to tail, about 2 to 3 car lengths separating each one of them. I wonder if Dylan will go up there and start to force this issue a little bit later here in this race. We're only got about 6.5 laps remaining. How patient does that purple number 5 stay? Or does he want to try to force a move up onto the podium late in the race?
Yeah, that's the big question. How worth it is it for him to start taking those risks out there, knowing that he could maybe climb even farther up in the championship? It's not too bad for him at this stage. So he does want to collect those points, but at the same time, if he could do anything to get through, as Blair has a spin coming out of the final corner. And that, you talked about that, Joey. Just, I think he goosed it a little too early there.
The common term is egg under throttle, the EUT. I know it sounds silly, but picture if you got an egg underneath the throttle pedal, and if you step on it too fast, that egg cracks and you got a giant mess of a car spinning around. So you have to be very, very gentle getting onto the throttle here as you see James Berry start to wiggle that tail end around, trying to get whatever he can in terms of that power to the ground. This is Gernot Frische that they're drafting up behind. Notice got no rear wing. A sad day for this number 1 car. Low downforce model, Le Mans.
Very much so. I'm kind of amazed that he's just still carrying on. I would have thought he'd maybe go into the pits to hope to get it reattached, but I guess he's just trying to pick up any attrition that might happen out there. In the meantime, Berry not able to use either West or Frische, and that is pretty much it for the lap traffic. Yeah, they're not going to get Boskus, who's the next one up the road, in about 6 laps time because he's way too far up. This is a straight fight between the pair of them. Probably good news for Hisada, bad news for Berry.
Well, James Berry just follows in the tire tracks. Actually, Togo Hisada a little bit loose on entry to turn number 6, and another loose moment on the exit of what was turn number 8. So maybe those rear tires starting to feel it on the back end of this black number 2 car that's been leading the way pretty much the entire race. Remember, James Berry was on pole position. He was able to lead, what was it, that first complete lap. But ever since that, Togo Hisada made the pass, and he has been in control in the clean air of this race. The number 4 car has been up alongside of them several times, but hasn't been able to get the lead back. I wonder if Togo Hisada can still manage those rear tires for the next 5 laps.
Yeah, you got to start thinking that maybe he set up the car to be good for most of the race, but it could still drop off a cliff late on. And maybe that's what we're seeing here. Look at how he gains Berry with that later braking coming down into turn 1. Something we haven't talked about as well that's probably affecting this and wearing out those tires. It's 113 Fahrenheit on the track surface. It's a toasty day.
The warmer it gets in terms of ambient and track temperature, it just means the less and less grip is available. But, Joe, I'm actually going to flip that on its head. I think that goes to benefit Togo Hisada. We talked about how loose the car likes. Craig King was actually able to point that out. So he is comfortable with the car that's moving around underneath him. I think the hotter it gets, the more it plays into Togo's favor.
So far, it's worked out for him. And I think the other impressive thing about all this is, remember, he had to make that pass. He didn't start in this position. He put himself there and then is just dealing with it afterwards as we come down to 12 once again. Still not enough for James Berry to try to get through. Going to be 4 to go at the line. Time is running out. Will James find the frustration too much? Will he start to do some desperate moves out there, or is he going to play nice to the end?
You were right. He did have that excellent pass on lap number 2. As looks like we got a problem with Ricardo Ruiz in turn number 1. Just spins it around a little bit too happy on that throttle pedal as well. So back to that pass that Togo made on James Berry. It was a great pass. Are you saying that Pauli Partanen wouldn't be able to do that pass? Only Togo could?
Those are your words, not mine. Just so you know, Pauli, if you're watching still. That's not what I said. That's what Joey said. In the meantime, we still got turn 2 with Hisada doing a nice job hugging that inside line down through that left-hander. Let's check out with Alvarez. Haven't looked at him in some time. He and Kurt Clapper still close to one another and have definitely lost track of those ahead of them, but also dropped Gallus behind, who they were battling with earlier. So now it's just these two on their lonesome trying to decide 17th.
Let's see here. See if anybody's got an advantage around these final couple of corners. Actually, they were both a little bit wide on the entry, but you can kind of drive the car back into that late apex. Unfortunately, though, for Antonio, Kurt was able to gap it out maybe 2-3 car lengths there over this yellow, white, and black number 20 as they both hit the brakes here going into turn number 1. Nice line there from Kurt Clapper, and that blue and white number 26 continues to kind of gap it out over Alvarez.
Kind of a funny contrast between Kurt and Jason Clapper, because Jason now up 18. Kurt's actually exactly where he started this race. So he did qualify and really hasn't gone anywhere.
Well, yes, you're right, but he was locked into that battle a little bit earlier, so I think maybe just a mistake on the racetrack early on in this race, and now we finally see this Miller Lite machine back up inside the top 20, I should say.
Saw that Hisada set the fastest lap of the race this last time by. The car is getting lighter and lighter now. And that is worth 2 bonus points, so that'll be important between James and Togo as well. If James wants to back off. And actually,
yeah,
as soon as I say that, he just did that. He left a little bit of room. I think James is intentionally trying to give himself a chance to take back those points.
I'm going to disagree with you, Joe. I think it was actually 2 mistakes out of James Berry. I went back and looked at it. He had a huge wiggle, a huge moment going down into turn number 2 on the brakes. And then he also got out pretty wide in that turn number 3 complex as we watch JDS on the back of Mueller here. So I think that he just made a mistake and lost a ton of time to Togo.
So maybe I'm looking a little bit too much into it here. Coming down to 2 laps to go now. Time absolutely running out, and now he's got to make up ground while we continue to watch Spickett versus Mueller. They've also dropped Dylan Freckleton, so something must have happened with him. That or these two were also able to pick up the space or the pace. So here's Barry. Yeah, oh, you're right. Look at that big counter steer, and had to do it a couple more times.
And at that section of the racetrack, he's so narrow there, it puts him out wide, so it just kind of feeds into those corners. But that mistake going down into turn number 2, you know it. It's elevation downhill. It also seems like the corner is kind of banked against you, so if you get out wide there, it just seems like the car continues to slide.
Another fastest lap for Togo Hisada. He's cut it down to 34.197 now. He is looking extremely fast. James Berry's fastest lap is only at 34.5. They're about 1.1 second apart, which is the farthest we've seen them away from each other this entire race. Mueller does not have that nicety, as Jack David Spickett still rides in his tire tracks, knowing that he's going to have to get a little bit closer to try and get this podium position back.
That talk about a wiggle from Jack David Spickett trying to squeeze onto the throttle. You saw the back of the car definitely not cooperate. I was going to kind of draw a parallel between James Berry and Togo Hisada up there, but he just continues to lose the time. So unfortunately for that number 4 car, it doesn't look like it's going to happen today. Is Jamie Wilson on the track back here. He is on the back of, I believe this is Aaron Blair directly in front of him.
This is for that 11th spot. And they have points all the way down in this series, so it's not like modern Formula One where they're trying to get up to that P10 to come home with a single point. So even still, I'm sure Jamie Wilson wants to try and get by here. We're on the final lap of the race. White flag is out for Togo Hisada. Barry cuts it down to about 9/10 of a second, so he's regained a tiny bit, but that mistake looks like it may have been the nail in the coffin.
100%, and ever since that Togo has gotten that little bit of a gap, he has pretty much just applied the pressure to everybody else with that fast lap, like you were saying. A little bit slower this previous time by, but he has got the time to burn. So up through turn number 5 for the final time. I'd actually circle this next couple of corners. This is the danger area. Keep it off of those apex curbs. Drive it through this sector, and you should see a checkered flag shortly.
Has the most leeway of the entire race right at the end when he wants to be able to just cruise home to victory, still sliding the car around a bit here and there, dealing with the heat, dealing with that low downforce car. Both of them really wringing the neck of these machines at the end, not letting up one bit. 2 more corners to go for Togo Hisada to get win number 4 on this season. He earned this one. He really had to work. He really had to defend this whole race long. And as he comes out of the final turn, your winner today in Hungary is going to be Togo Hisada in the number 2.
A difficult race, but he was able to hang on to it the whole time. James Berry crosses the line in a frustrating second place, and it looks like Mueller here in the yellow, white, and black number 11 will round out your podium in third place.
Yeah, Mueller able to put some distance right at the very end over JDS. Freckleton with a nice top 5 himself, so he'll be pleased with that. Ricardo Ruiz seems to have gotten a black flag, so I think with him not serving that, he's going to have time added to his race here after he crosses the checkered flag. Jason Clapper going to wind up 18 positions up while we watch the end of the fight with Alvarez and Kurt Clapper.
And just coming to complete this, call it final third of a lap. This is turn number 12, the right-hander here. And actually, Antonio's done a pretty good job to draw it back into Kurt Clapper. When we had checked on these two drivers a couple laps ago, it certainly seemed like Kurt was able to drive away from this number 20 car, but Antonio kept him honest through these last couple laps. They both accelerate out onto the front straightaway to complete today's race. Unfortunately, Kevin Parrish actually is going to give up a few positions, so all of these drivers coming to the line, they're going to get one more spot.
He was trying to get close to Matt Cockrum, and he just got on the throttle too soon, and around it went. Bjorn Ackerman does get to see the finish, but only 22nd today. That first lap definitely put him behind the 8 ball. But that allows us to go through our finishing order for today's event. As we mentioned, Togo Hisada is going to be your victor once again. 0.7 of a second is actually a much wider gap than what we saw for much of it. Barry within about 3 to 4 tenths almost the entire race. He'll take P2. Mueller in third, only dropped back to about 7 seconds behind them, so still good pace for him. Jack David Spickett with a nice fourth, and Dylan Freckleton fifth. Karthik Pai P6 as Hans Sommer will finish 7th. Jack Wells in 8th, and Mickey Friesen. Some good fights from him today. He'll finish 9th. Jason Clapper didn't qualify, but came from 28th to 10th.
Yeah, he did end up getting that top 10 after all, so nice job there from Jason. Aaron Blair going to finish back here in 11th spot. Jamie Wilson into 12th. Alex Matei up 7 to finish in 13th, with Cochran behind him in 14th. Kirk Clapper had that battle with Antonio Alvarez. They come home 15th and 16th, with Daniel Gallus in 17th. Keith Herner 18th, Banker 19th. Kevin Parrish, unfortunately, with that spin towards the end, still finished +6 on the day, but slips back to 20th.
Ricardo Ruiz was 21st with Bjorn Ackerman. Actually, the last one on the lead lap there in 22nd. Frisha, despite lacking a rear wing, was 23rd, but a lap down. Boscus was 24th, a lap down. Then you've got Barry West able to finish in 25th. Matt White will take 26th. Taylor Lane, Andrea Zanin are going to be our only DNFs of the day. I believe we're waiting on some of our podium finishers, but we will have a chat with Barry West. Maybe we can track down what caused him some issues to have to pull off to the side. Barry, we saw you kind of stop at the side of the track. We suspected it was some sort of technical problem. What derailed you for a moment?
It was my, instead of forward view, my headset just was looking left. I didn't know where I was going, and it just pulled left, so I couldn't drive at all. So I couldn't reset the buttons. The buttons weren't working, and so I think it might have been a wheel issue. So I got back to the pits and had to tow for 2 minutes, and then it all came back. So managed to get out 2 laps down, but pity really, because I was having a great race with was it Andy Parrish and catching up Matthew. So yeah, I think it could have been top 14, 15. So yeah, it really could. It's a strong track here, but yeah, so annoying.
Yeah, we got to see a little bit of that. So at least we got some of the fun that you had before things went awry. How was it trying to race here? Because the track was super hot at 113 Fahrenheit out there. It looked slippery.
It certainly was slippery, yeah. But then again, it's yeah, I suppose I'm used to it. You can get into a nice flow with this track. I don't know what was he doing, 36s. Yeah, I think if I'd have stayed on the 36s, I'd have got fast towards the end. 35, the last 3 laps in the last race were 35s. As long as the trouble is you try and challenge somebody, and the person behind you straight on you, because you deviate from the line and you lose so much time. So it's just best not to fight, But of course, everybody wants to fight. It's so much fun.
Absolutely. Well, not only are we glad to see you at least get to see the finish, but we're glad to have you back. I hope you're feeling better at this stage.
Yeah, much stronger. Thanks, guys. And congrats to Togo. It looks like he had a good race. 0.7. Yeah.
It was a good race. That was Barry West coming home 25th today. And talk about not having to fight, Joey. Togo, who you've caught up with, had to really defend all race long.
Togo Hisada, first of all, congratulations on the race win. You started in second place and you made the move at the end of lap 1. You hung on to it for the rest of the race. How important was that pass?
Yeah, I was totally shocked looking the James Bailey's qualifying time, and then I think it's over. I cannot race him at least. So my only strategy is just with the cold tires, I have a little bit more experience with the first half of the lap. So just only choice to make a move a little bit aggressive. But after that, fortunately my setup is more lower downforce. So that means my car is a little bit faster on the straight. So that I can manage to to bring the car home.
And I have to ask you, qualifying, you were actually third. I misspoke, not second. You started third here today. Does that get into your head at all? You're obviously a former champion. You win a ton of races, but all of a sudden, you got 2 cars faster than you in qualifying. Did you have to think about that at all?
Yes, James is very fast in last week, Blanchard, and already I'm battled with Yuli in Julius in the last soft race. So I know they are so fast and so good to so great to make a setup change. Yeah, and they are running with a little bit more high downforce setups. I like more like middle of low downforce guards. So there's a difference. So some tracks I'm faster. I hope I still have a pace, but some track like this they are faster than me. Yeah. So today's I think the low pace. I'm slower than those two. Yeah, I think.
I think that it doesn't matter if it's a short track, a long track, a high downforce, a low downforce. You are always going to be one of the fastest cars, if not the fastest driver out there. Thank you so much for coming and racing with us. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Lotus 49 community, and thanks for Power Partner, and he helped me with the setup. His setup is so great. I'm using his setup for best line, and it worked very well today. And the GSRC broadcast team, thank you very much.
Well, that was Togo Hisada. I know he said Lotus 49, but I'm pretty sure he meant Lotus 79 as well. He's got a lot of seat time in both of those cars, doesn't he?
Hard to tell these days. But James Barry's trying to catch up to that seat time as he was trying to catch up to our eventual winner. James, we noticed that it looked like maybe you had a bit more downforce than Togo, and that made it difficult on the front straight. Were we accurate on that?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm exhausted after that. Bloody hell. Sorry, but yeah, I was running a race that was pretty close to my quali setup, and I was actually using Pauli's setup as a baseline that he shared a couple of days ago, and I noticed that was pretty low on the rear wing, and I added more rear wing, took off some front wing, so I had a different balance and a lower top speed, which was pretty obvious to see. But that was the only way I think that I could have been fast enough to kind of stick with Togo. And I was just hoping that I'll be able to put him under enough pressure at some point to force him into a mistake in one of the turns and be able to do a dive bomb similar to last week, because last week it was a similar story and I pulled it off on that occasion. But this time, I just couldn't do it. He drove pretty damn well. He didn't make too many mistakes, and just the dirty air through the whole of the lap pretty much is too much to deal with. It makes me lose so much time. So fair play to Togo. The move he made at the start was really decisive. Looking back on it, I need to learn from that because I gave him way too much space, to be honest. So things to learn from.
Always a good driver making those notes. Well, speaking of which, though, if you feel like you were cost a little bit of straight line speed, do you find yourself feeling a need to learn to drive some of the lower downforce settings you see some of the quick guys use?
Yeah, it is worth me definitely spending some time seeing if I can maintain a good race pace whilst driving those setups. I don't know how skilled I am. I've been kind of relying on the high downforce setups this week and last. So yeah, it's definitely going to go away and see. And next week at Nordschleife as well, it's going to be really, really interesting, the setup balance there.
Well, if you're quick enough to keep Togo honest the entire race, I'd say you're pretty skilled, sir. Congratulations on a P2.
Thank you, guys. Cheers. See you.
That was James Barry coming home in second place today. But we've got, of course, a fun one coming up next. I think it has been mentioned, Joey, the Nürburgring. My goodness, that's going to be quite an event in these cars. We've seen it before, but every time we go there, I am just drooling at the possibility of seeing how this race will play out.
I am happy that they are racing it, not me in the simulator. It is an incredibly difficult racetrack, and you combine it with those tall curbs that you've got on either side. These cars do not like those tall curbs, so the drivers have to be on every single apex, every single corner around this Nordschleife track, and it will be fast and frantic.
Without a doubt. Of course, we'll have Jerez up next for the Grand Prix Legends Series. So that is the Lotus 49s in a bit of time. I'd say this is pretty much what we expected out of Hungary today, Joey. This type of race where it comes down to a lot of defense and just holding your line.
And it was interesting to hear James at the end of the show here say, yeah, he did make a couple little setup changes, and guess what? We saw it visually on the racetrack. Togo said he took a little bit of wing out. Well, guess what? James Barry actually made a different adjustment to get it a little bit looser, so maybe he'll go back and take those notes and say, hey, I can get the same characteristic but have the same speed that Togo had on the straightaway. Maybe in the future, these closing couple rounds, it might get interesting.
Some fascinating differing philosophies. A big thank you to everybody for tuning in, as well as to our team today, Joey, Dougie, and Christian. And don't forget to subscribe to both GSRC and iRacing's channel so you don't miss a moment. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.